very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our program bringing you all the latest news and events from the Black Continent. My name is Angie Meher, and as usual we begin straight away with a look at some of the news making the headlines, starting with Egypt, where Cairo said partnership between Egypt and France is based on the important role both Egyptian and French companies and institutions play in achieving development by doing joint business projects. Also added, these ventures benefit the two sides, stimulate genuine economic growth, as well as provide job opportunities for the young generations. We have more details in this report.
The Egyptian-French Business Forum was held in Cairo on Monday. A number of officials were present at the event, in which nearly 50 Egyptian and French companies participated. Madbouli said French investments reached 4 billion euros in Egypt. He said the forum is an important gathering, for it helps in the country's endeavors to boost and develop its partnership with France and deepen bilateral ties in different fields. He said the meeting is an important opportunity for reviewing and following up on steps and viewpoints to develop trade relations. Madbouli commended French efforts to shore up developmental cooperation with Egypt through participating in financing several projects as per Egyptian economic reform plans. He said Cairo spares no effort to set the stage for attracting more investments to Egypt, given the fact that the private sector plays a pivotal role in achieving sustainable development and generating more jobs. He said Cairo seeks to lure more direct French investments to sectors of priority and encourage French companies to participate in future projects.
And continuing with our news, the number of coronavirus infections in Africa has surpassed 11.29 million cases. This came as the continent continues to see a decline in new infections. We have the details.
According to the latest data by the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the total number of confirmed infections reached 11,295,377, with 250,564 virus-related fatalities as of last Sunday. South Africa remains to be the hardest hit by the pandemic in Africa, having registered 3,703,329 infections with 99,879 deaths. With those figures, the country accounts for 32.78% of Africa's reported cases and 39.86% of its fatalities. Two more countries have topped the 1 million mark, with Morocco's 1,162,444 cases being the second highest tally in Africa, ahead of Tunisia's 1,029,762. All but one of the remaining African countries have registered less than 500,000 COVID-19 infections. The last wave of high infections to hit the continent came in the last quarter of 2021, attributed to the emergence of the Omicron variant. Africa is banking on vaccinations to contain the virus. So far, some 435 million vaccine doses have been administered on the continent. So far, also 15% of the adult population is fully vaccinated. The downturn in the number of new infections has prompted some countries to ease containment measures, including the removal of masks and of lifting of bans on gatherings. The World Health Organization, however, continues to reiterate calls for vigilance against the virus to avoid another spike in infections.
And continuing with our news, moving to some sports, Liverpool coach Jurgen Klopp said that Egypt-Senegal game is too big in Africa. Egypt's Salah and Senegal's Mane will also face off in the two-leg game, do-or-die qualifying match on the 25th of March in Cairo and the 29th of March in Dakar. We have the details.
Liverpool coach Jurgen Klopp, 54, said he sidelined Egypt's Mohamed Salah and Senegal's Sadio Mane during the 1-0 win over Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup on Sunday because of the upcoming 2022 World Cup qualifying playoff game between Egypt and Senegal is too big in Africa. Klopp said at the press conference held after the game, Mo felt the foot again from the Brighton game. Klopp said at the press conference held after the game, quote, "Mo felt the foot again from the Brighton game. It's not massive, but it was clear that you would not be in a game like this if you have a little bit of pain here or there. There is no chance," End quote. Klopp said that at the moment it was clear that they will not use Sadio for the game because the game is too big in Africa. Egypt's Salah, 29, and Senegal's Mane, also 29, will face off in the two-leg game do-or-die qualifying playoff on the 25th of March in Cairo and 29th of March in Dakar. Egypt and Senegal last clashed in the African Cup of Nations final in February, with Senegal led by Mane defeating Egypt led by Salah on penalties following a 0-0 draw. The 29-year-old Pharaoh skipper Salah helped Liverpool beat Arsenal 2-0 in the English Premier League on Wednesday to fire up the race with Man City for this year's title. However, he suffered some tough knocks during the Arsenal game, prompting Klopp to criticize the referees for not protecting him to the needed extent.
نحن لدينا مصير مشترك.
مصر تسلمت الرئاسة الدورية للاتحاد الإفريقي لعام 2019 وتتطلع كعادتها دوما للتعبير عن شواغل الشعوب الإفريقية الشقيقة الرامية لتحقيق الاستقرار والتقدم ودفع عجلة التنمية قدما. إذا كنتم ترغبون في تغيير وجه القارة الأفريقية فالاتحاد الإفريقي كقيادة تستطيع أن تعمل وتدرس بشكل مركزي لمشروع عملاق لبناء بنية أساسية على مستوى القارة. أنا أتصور أن الأمن والاستقرار استثمار. إذا لم تستقر هذه القارة والأمن فيها بمعدلاته عالية، هذا الأمر سينعكس بالسلب علينا كلنا.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by Mr. Abdul Latif Wahba, the journalist and our guest for this afternoon. It's a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. First and foremost, how do you weigh the importance of strong European-African ties, especially with a further push in this regard?
As you know, that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, during his presidency of the African Union,
yes,
launched many initiatives, even in the United Nations, in Europe at the same time.
Yes.
And during his negotiations and his meeting with the European countries' leaders, when he asked that the African continent must or has to take its part, its portions from the world economic development in all the African countries, of course. And as you know, he told frankly for the European leaders that these countries suffered in past decades during the colonial period.
Yes.
As you know that in these times, the European countries took the most of the natural resources of the African countries. So it is the time to compensate all the African states and to take their portions from the world and the international economic development.
Yes.
This is on one hand. And during, at the same time, during the COP 26, he also reiterated his words asking the European countries and the Western nations to cooperate and to help the African states, especially in their movement for green economy.
Yes, indeed, especially since the African continent is bearing the brunt as a result of the developed nations. Yes.
Yeah, of course, of course. As you know that Egypt supported all the African countries, supporting the many countries, especially in establishing the main infrastructures.
Yes.
And we have also an international fund agency. I think it is about in Ministry or administrations in Ministry of Foreign Affairs that helps the African countries in many sectors.
Yes,
especially
indeed.
education, the health, the main infrastructures, the climate change, and also the how to face also the environmental pollutions and so on.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, as you know, that Egypt hosted many African delegations for training in Egypt, especially in health sectors, for example, and also in media, in transportation, in electricity sectors, and so on.
Yes.
We have a strong Egyptian company that launched many projects in African states, and as you know that at the same time we donated for many of these countries.
Yes, absolutely right. Mr. Abdel Latif, now the Egyptian French Business Forum was held in Cairo on Monday. And of course, this is a very important meeting to further relations between Europe and Africa, Europe being in the role of France and Africa being in the role of Egypt. How do you see such a forum benefiting the two countries and furthering ties between the two continents?
Let me say first that, as you know, there is a competition just now in all over the world, especially in North America, in European countries, and the Asian also countries,
yes.
to launch cooperations with the African Union and the African states and so on. As you know that the United States, for example, launched an initiative for cooperation between the United States and the African nations.
Yes.
And at the same time, the Asian countries, headed by China, also launched another initiative for economic cooperation with the African countries.
Yes.
As you know that many, also the Latin America have a special event for the Africa concerning the ties between the two continents and how can they exchange benefits when to when.
Yes.
At the same time, as you know, that Egypt is leading a great part in African continent concerning how to improve, how to help the African nations in their domestic development, how to raise the standard of life of the African people, how to do you remember exactly when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi wanted the European Union,
yes.
when he told them that we did and we still do a great effort concerning the illegal immigrations from Africa to the European countries.
Yes.
So if you help in improving the standard of life of the African people, it will be better to create jobs for the users and to suffocate also the unemployment rate in African Union.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Abdul Latif, as you mentioned, job creation is a very important outcome of ties and collaboration and bilateral relations between Egypt and France, which of course is a very important country in Europe. We've seen the Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, saying that French investments have already reached 4 billion euros in Egypt. How do you see this amount reflecting expectations for further investment horizons in Egypt?
Let us say first that Egypt, under the administration of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, intended to diversify its relations, not to depend upon traditional allies. As you know, we have cooperations with the Asian nations.
Yes.
We have a different cooperations with the European, with the American, with the Latin American, and so on. But we have historical relations with France, as you know.
Yes.
And so I think at the same time that France may be one of the high ranked European countries that has a huge investment in Egypt. We have a cooperation in transportation, in electricity, in information technology, even in aviation and so on. This is, of course, may express or may translate the historical relations between Egypt and France.
Indeed. Mr. Abdul Latif, let me ask you, how do you describe the pace by which European-African ties are developing in comparison to other ties like, for example, Chinese-African relations and collaboration?
As I told you, that there is a competition between between the countries with a strong economy to get benefits from the African continent. As you know that China, for example, has an investment or maybe the biggest investment in African states and so on. But this, of course, depends on how to get some benefits, how to open the African countries' markets for the Chinese exporters. At the same time, we want an equilibrium relations between the African states and any other countries like France, like China, and so on.
Yes.
So you have to deal with the scheme, with the plan, when to when.
Yes, indeed. And let me ask you, sir, how do you see the role of the private sector as furthering European-African partnerships? Where do they fit in?
Of course, as you know that all the countries all over the world just now are depending on the private sectors. They have the financial assets, they have the financial capabilities to invest and to go to any countries. This is on one hand. And at the same time, as you know, that they can go to the African market or states and so on,
yes,
but under the umbrella of their states. as you know.
Indeed.
But I think it is important for the African states to cooperate with the most progressive countries in the world.
Yes.
With the huge economy and so on, like China, like France, like the United States.
Yes.
And this is, of course, to transfer of know-how technology.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Mr. Abdul Latif Wahba, journalist and our guest for this afternoon. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of Africa Today. My name is Angie Meher. Thank you for watching.